Hello, time for the post Rob McCall 2017 vlog update. Um, so I'm going to start with last competition. I averaged the performance of my skaters to 7.3. I just want to go over what the 1 to 10 scale means again, because I know it can be, well, I don't want people to have to look at it every time. I keep forgetting to rate these in advance. So basically, what a 10 means is that's the best solo that skater has done. I'd say ever, but usually I try to look at the last 2 to 3 weeks of solos. That's the most indicative of how they're going to skate in competition. And a 1 is the worst solo they've done in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Now this competition, I felt like we were a little unprepared because I only had really 2 solos. Well, I had 4 that were starting to hit plateaus, starting to hit their maximum and averaging more around 10. But then I had a bunch that just started to improve a couple weeks ago, and every day was a little bit of improvement, which you really don't want to see going into a competition. You want the solos to be already at their plateau and hitting 10. By the way, 10 is not the best the solo can possibly be. As an example, I'll use some of my skaters as examples. I'm sure you can live with that. What would be an example? Let's give Madison as an example. I was going to give Nina, but I'll give Madison. Madison has 2 doubles and 2 axles and 2 spins in a spiral sequence in her solo. Those are all kind of the semi-risk elements. Maybe not the spins. We haven't missed a spin, I don't think, in months, so that's not an issue. Or under-rotated, or missed a position, or anything. So, and the spirals aren't either, not for her. So the risk elements are 2 axles, 2 doubles. She's never done a solo leading up to competition with all 4 jumps landed, so theoretically that would be a 10. That's what we want. That's the best solo you can be. But her 10 is actually missing, landing both axles and missing the double sow, I think is the best solo she's done, which she's done quite a lot. So a 10 is not really the max potential of the solo, it's the maximum execution of the solo. And a lot of people get confused, especially I have a couple skaters in particular who in practice are, as I said, they don't gravitate towards 10s as we would like them to do with proper training and proper conditioning and proper mental and sports psychology applied. You should be averaging a fairly good solo every time. I have some kids who are just bounce all over the place and have terrible solos pretty regularly, and you have no idea from one day to the next what they're going to be. What was the point of saying that? I can't remember. Anyway, so we're going to see how well. My impression is that we're going to do better than 7.3. I didn't really have a terrible solo at this competition. I had at least 4 personal bests out of the 9 solos. I only had 1 skater that skated, I would say, near the bottom of a range, but it wasn't. It might have been slightly below the bottom. But wasn't shaky. She wasn't, at fall skate I had, I think, 3 skaters who skated a bit shaky, a bit nervously, a bit less competently than they normally do in practice. I'm not talking the jumps and spins. I'm talking balance, control, coordination, hitting your positions, hitting your landings, hitting spin positions, just looking calm and smooth and controlled all the way through. And I really had no one this competition that was particularly shaky. So overall, I would say we're definitely much better off in this competition. But let's see here. So my events. Oh, the other thing is, I mentioned at the end of my fall video, we had about 5 illegal elements that they got no points for in the Star 5 and 6 events at Fall Skate. This event, we had none. We apparently fixed all those. We did have one person who ended up getting some illegal elements due to skater error, not due to choreography or coaching error, but that's a totally different topic. I can't remember exactly what the order of skate was. I think it was Nina, Becky, Madison, Rachel, interpretive, Rachel, and then Sunday was Jessica, Caitlin, Sandra. Probably should have left more room there. So going over it, basically, again, I think most people skated very well. I'll go over it individually now. So Nina, first time in Star 5, scored, I think, a 13 point something, 13.02 or something like that, which is decent. I'd like it to be around 15. If you're hovering around 15 in Star 5, you're in the ballpark to get medals. if you're around 20, which is where usually the gold medalist will be, you're guaranteed to get a medal, if not a gold medal. Somebody else would have to be pretty good. Star 5, you're allowed to do 2 doubles in the solo, so the ones who are really, really strong in the category, over strong for the category, will have 2 axles and 2 doubles, which just pads their total up to 20. If you don't have the doubles, you can't really get much above 15. So Nina skated. As I said, I debrief most parents after their skate. Nina skated pretty well. She landed 1 axle out of 2, which is pretty, element-wise, it was pretty normal. She was a little slow, but over-presented. Not over-presented, extra-presented. So her presentation mark was a little better than normal. Her speed was a little worse than normal, which evens out to about 50-50. I'd say overall it was she's had solos where she's missed her spiral and her combination spin and her under-rotated her sit spin. So she's been averaging missing 1 to 3 elements per solo, and she only missed one axle. So I would say we're getting close to a 10. Is there any reason it wouldn't be a 10? Yes, because she did 1 solo in practice that landed both axles and had every element good. So I would call it a 9. Ta-da! I should do that in another color. Let's do blue. Which again is very decent. She's one of the few people who had a solo ready for a while, so it's been hovering around 8, 9, or 10 the whole time. B. What's B? Becky? Becky had the weak skate at fall skate. I believe the first time she skated particularly weak for me at competition or test day. And she bounced back this time and I believe skated the best solo she's ever done. But again, she was one of the other students I had who was starting to level out and plateau, and she was having she had I'm going to say 4 clean solos with both axles, the double sow, both spins correct, the spirals held long enough. So her 10, which is the maximum points her solo right now has, she was getting 3 or 4 times before this competition, and she did it again at the competition. She got full points for everything, I believe. Am I right? Yeah, I'm right. Or did she fall on something? I don't remember. So I'm going to call that a 10. I don't think there was anything particularly better than practice, her best in practice, but it was the same as her best in practice. And again, you shouldn't be expecting a 10. There were practices where she missed a spiral sequence, or missed a spin, or missed an axle, or missed the last axle, or this double sow. And so 10 is, again, as expected on a scale of 1 to 10, near the upper range of what you could possibly expect. Madison was really the only one in the weekend who didn't do elements well. She missed both axles, which she hasn't been doing in practice at all. But nothing else. Both spins were good, spirals were good. She ran into a few quirky scoring errors, which made her place lower than she normally would and score way lower than she normally would. I thought she was going to get about 12 for points, and I think I would have been right, but they decided that one of her jumps and one of her spins were illegal because there was a little bit of a rearrange and a stumble at the beginning, and it's really hard to explain. One of the intricacies of Star 5. You can't repeat elements, and they thought she had repeated an element at one point. But really, the stroking, the skating, the presentation was the same as practice. The spirals were the same as practice. Speed was the same as practice. So overall skating wasn't terrible. It was just a couple elements that were bad. She has missed... I guess she hasn't missed more than that, so I'm going to have to put it down near 1. No, you know what? Let's call it a 2. Because there have been solos where she came in tired and with sore ankles where she just kind of stumbled through the solo, and she really didn't in this one. It's a few little stumbles, but for the most part it skated normally and smoothly all the way through. Without the weird scoring error, she still would have been in the top half of her event. And as it was, she still wasn't last or second last, so considering the massive amount of scoring errors, that was a decent result. Rachel, interpretive, best interpretive she's ever done in competition, highest score she's ever had out of 5 competitions with this solo. I think I told her I'd seen her do it maybe twice better in practice, so I'm going to give that also a 9 out of 10. I think she has been capable of doing better, and she is capable of doing it better at provincials, but was pretty near the top of her execution for the interpretive. Solo was also actually pretty good. She missed her last jump, which gives people the false impression their whole solo was a mess. But really, there was nothing else in it. And when you look at her score, she didn't really lose points for anything. She got points for every element. She didn't have very few minuses, except for the double sow and the last axle. I don't think she had any other minuses other than that. So I'm going to say it's an above-average solo. She has missed the axle before, that last axle. It happens, I'm going to say one-third half of the time, maybe one-third of the time. She never misses either spin. Not in the last 2 weeks. She never misses the spirals. She skated a little slow. Maybe I'll put it around 5. Let's call it around 5. Yeah, I could mark it lower. I could also mark it a little bit higher. Yeah, let's say 5, average. Jessica skated the best solo she skated all year. She landed every jump. She did every spin. I don't think she got 0 for anything except the axle was pretty lousy, but that's fairly typical. She hasn't had the axle yet. It was her first star. No, it was her second star 4 competition. She got 3 golds, which I think is 2 more than her last competition. So again, I don't even think it was a 10 because I don't think she's done a solo that good in practice. So I think it's more like an 11. That was better than she ever has done in practice up to this point with this solo in Star 4. Caitlin, first Star 2 solo. Again, the best solo she's ever done. I got to put that up to a 12 because we were still struggling through just trying to get the choreography right and the right spirals on the right feet and all legal elements. And camel spin was done, which is very rarely successful in the program. Yeah, it was by far the best solo she's ever done. And after a really rough warm-up, too, which is a good note to everyone. Sandra, again, probably, let's see, she missed the combination spin, which she usually does. She often misses the spirals. She didn't. She misses the backspin occasionally, third of the time. She didn't. She got a gold on it. She missed the last flip. She does that a lot. So it was... has she done better in practice? I'm going to give her 9. I think I might have seen 1 or 2 where she landed the last flip and did the combination spin. But it probably is a 10. That was probably the best solo she's ever done. Anyway, so there we go for how my students did. Now I'll add that up. That's 9 solos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Why is it only 8? Oh, right. Okay, 9, 10. Right. Math time. We got a 9, a 10, 19, 21, 30, 46, 46, 56, 58, 67. Divided by 8 is 9. 8 point something. 64. 5, 4. Nope, 3, 8.3. 24, 6. 8.38, something like that. Yeah, 8.38 versus, well, let's call it 8.3. Let's call it 8.4. So, again, execution a little bit better. We did get, as I said, not in addition to the 4 best skates we've ever had. Becky, best skate she's ever had. Rachel, interpretive, best skate she's ever had. Jessica, best skate she's ever had. Caitlin, best skate she's ever had. Sandra, best skate she's ever had. No, she did better last year with a different solo. That's kind of maybe comparing apples and oranges, but let's take her out. Let's say 4 best skates out of 8. That's pretty good. And of those 4, we ended up getting, my results were in the standard silver, 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 which is decent. And I think all of them got multiple golds and very few merits. I think between the 3 of them, I only had 1 merit. So that's good. They're averaging less than 1 merit per kid. They're averaging more than 2 golds per kid, I think. And in the other results, I had a high score for Rachel's interpretive and probably the highest she's placed in a big group of kids. Nina placed 7th, but 5 of them were from New Brunswick above her. So leading into provincial, she only has one person in the province who has beaten her in Star 5, which is a good sign. And she didn't do, as I said, she usually does. She is capable of doing both axles, and we're hoping to work into that towards provincials. So really good chance of getting to skate Atlantics. Becky placed 2nd and beat 2 New Brunswick skaters. She was only beaten by 1 Nova Scotian skater. Really, there's no reason to believe that we can't duplicate that again at provincials and possibly improve upon it, although the only real way to improve is to have the double toe. Madison has some catching up to do to get to her best, which was one of her competitions last year. Rachel's interpretive, again, could get a little bit smoother, a little bit better, but I think she was beaten by 2 New Brunswick people as well, so she should be in the medals at provincials, assuming we're around the same level. She scored 27, the high score was 30. 2 other people scored 27, just ahead of her. She was 27 point, I believe, 02, and there was a 27.22 and a 27 point, I believe, 18. So she was within 0.2 of a bronze medal. For her solo, she scored 15, which is, I believe, the second highest score she's ever gotten, and decent for missing one of her axles. There's a lot of improvement to be done between now and provincials, but generally speaking, the fact that almost everybody executed, again, near the top of their possible execution is great. Yes, that's it. Bye.